Chris Black of Actor. Welcome to 69 Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Mark? We're kicking off the weekend together.
Excellent. So congratulations on this lovely album.
Oh, there it is. Cool. Thank you.
Yes. Uh, Excellent. I can't get enough of it. And here we are.
And here we are.
So every 5 years, a new Actor album comes out. Can you explain the process in which Actor works and why is it so mathematically accurate?
It's a coincidence. The short answer is that the 5 year
Oh,
thing um, is is basically a coincidence, but it does at the same time reflect, I think, the amount of work and therefore the amount of time that goes into making these albums. We probably spent about 2 years writing and recording this one, which doesn't mean that we were working on it continuously for 2 years, of course, but kind of in little or not so little bursts along the way, kind of in phases. The first phase is for Jussi to come to me and say, "Hey, I have some stuff that I've written that I think it probably sounds like Actor. What do you think?" And he'll send it to me, and invariably I give the thumbs up and say, "Yes, let's hear some more." And then uh, he gets on a roll, and then the songs start coming rather quickly to him sometimes. And what he is doing at that stage is creating demos that have a drum machine, not a drum machine, but programmed drums, keeping time, his guitar riffs, and with this album, he actually did a lot of the synthesizers and keyboard melodies also at the demo stage. So when it landed on my desk, a lot of these songs were quite well formed already in terms of the layers that they were going to have. Now, the songs didn't all have a beginning and a middle and an end, or they didn't all have a chorus, or they're they weren't in a final structure, let's say, but to me, a surprising amount of the music was already there on the plate for me to kind of then organize into what I felt would be good structures for building a song on top of.
And how is it that two guys from Finland and a guy from Chicago found each other in the first place?
Well, it's a good question. And in fact, what happened was one day, I think around 2007, it was either 2006 or 2007, I got an email out of the blue from Jussi to say, "Hey, I heard your music with Dawnbringer, and I think it's really cool. And can I send you some of my music?" And of course, I said, nice to meet you. Thank you. And of course, you can send me whatever you want. And, I'll check it out. And he did that. Sent me a lot of albums with his band Circle. He had a band called Pharaoh Overlord, which I think is still going. Circle's definitely still going, but I believe Pharaoh Overlord is also. And from there, we just kind of formed this friendship over, all these different musical pursuits that we had separately. And it wasn't long before one of us said to the other, "Hey, let's think about writing some music together." Um, which sounded like a great idea, but then the practical means of doing that and the actual opportunity to do that within our schedules was still a few years away, I think.
What would you say initially attracted you to the music you were hearing from them?
Um, I think the fact that it was so different from my own songwriting and album productions that I had been doing on my own. I think the the fact that it was originating from a different human place and a different songwriter um, is what I found intriguing, also challenging in a way, but also easy in a way because I wasn't trying to do that heavy lift of creating the foundation of the song. The foundation was already there. I just kind of had to, like I said, give it structure, um, put some um, put the voice to it, really. Give it its identity, in a way. Um, but yeah, I don't think it has ever happened that. Well, maybe it has because UC usually comes to the plate with more songs than we need. If we, if he'll come with 12 songs and we go with the best 10 or something. But it's not right away that we will say, hey, song number six maybe is not the best of this bunch. We work on them all and bring them all pretty far along before we say, maybe song number six can just take a seat for now, and we'll focus on the rest. So yeah, it's and it's usually unanimous when we do have that feeling about a particular song. It's like maybe that's not the one this time.
Chris, you yourself are involved in a number of projects. So, how do you get into a mindset when it comes to actor that you completely committed to that?
Well, again, it's the origin of the songs. They're so different from what I would write for myself that the inspiration really is right there. I mean, this whatever style or whatever genre of music you would identify actor as being, it's a kind of music I don't listen to. It's not in my usual vocabulary or my mental jukebox. These types of riffs and these types of melodies. So really, I'm able to draw all the inspiration I need from the demos that I'm receiving for the project. So it kind of happens. I don't want to say it happens in like a petri dish or something like that, but it does happen kind of in its very much in its own environment. Speaking for myself.
Mhm,
Obviously, UC being the main composer might give a different answer, but for me, it's all very insulated.
mhm. So, how long did it take for this album to get completed from the beginning to now?
Probably till now,
Mhm.
till release, maybe 3 years. Certainly more than two. And of course, there's a big gap at the end while you're waiting for everything to come back from the factory. Um, but this one happened pretty slowly, which on one hand is good because then you can there's no pressure on you to get something done by a certain deadline. Um, so it kind of happens in stages, as I said. We start with the demo and then kind of just build on top of that until it seems like it's done.
Mhm.
And this time we used Dan Swano to do the mixing and the mastering. And that took, having worked with Dan before, I can say this one took a bit longer to finish, and that was for a few reasons. One of those reasons I think is the complexity of the different sounds and tones that are involved. Some songs have a whole drum kit and then an entire second drum kit recorded with it, and then percussion tracks to go with that. And we haven't even started talking about guitars and keyboards, you know what I mean? So I think there were, 50 or 60 individual tracks on some of these songs, and that just is naturally going to take more time than a song that only has 20 tracks to mix. But also, and this was actually pretty cool. Um, if you follow Dan with Edge of Sanity or Nightingale at all, you know that during this year, I think he's close to the end now, but during this year, every season there's been this wave of back catalog reissues from his bands Edge of Sanity and Nightingale. It's like, two or three albums at a time that he's worked very hard to um, restore, remix, remaster, kind of give new elements to the layout, new elements to the sound. So he was actually mixing Actor kind of in between the hours that and weeks and months that he was spending with his own back catalog. So it was kind of cool as an Edge of Sanity fan going back to the 90s, that one day there's an email from Dan. He's, oh, I just I just finished remixing Crimson 2, so here's two more of your songs. Let me know what you think. So it was actually pretty cool as a fan to know that he was making time for our project in between phases of what's obviously a very important thing for him to be doing, which is kind of shoring up his legacy um, with a couple of his bands.
Mhm. Now, obviously, this is a concept record, right?
Yes.
The idea of a concept record based on a TV show, how long have you lived with that idea?
Um, Again, about a couple years. It came relatively early in the album process. It came relatively early in my process, I should say. Once I had the full set of songs, um, and it was time for me to kind of roll up my sleeves and begin writing lyrics. That coincided with the tail end of kind of a fixation that I was having with this type of uh, uh, detective TV show from the Scandinavian part of the world. I had been watching a lot of it and kind of uh, gotten to a point where I was burned out a little bit. I figured, I watched a handful of series and then a handful of more series, and then it was at a point where I thought to myself, I think I have seen the best of this style, and everything that's left is probably just crap, uh, rehash of the better shows. But I decided that that it would be fun to kind of memorialize my TV viewing habit in album form, in musical form. And since my bandmates are from Finland, from the part of the world where some of these shows originate, I thought, well, maybe it wouldn't be it would definitely be Actor would be the put it this way, if there was a project where I could get away with doing this kind of weird concept, it's definitely Actor. And I pitched it to my bandmates and they said, sounds fine. Not sure we understand completely, but you should go for it because we trust you um, to do what you want to do and make it cool. So that's what I set out to do was tell a kind of cliche, generic Scandinavian series of a Scandinavian detective show.
So without giving everything away, can you tell what Professori is about?
Professori is the name of the title character for the show because all of these shows, either the name is the town where they take place or it's the name of the lead detective. So in this case, it's the name of the lead detective, uh, and he's a bit strange as the lead detective in the TV show usually is. A bit antisocial. Has some strange methods for solving the crimes and stuff. But this album actually represents season two, and in season two we find that Professori has actually vanished and is presumed to have been murdered, possibly by his criminal nemesis, who we know from season one. So, in order to solve the crime, solve this disappearance, his less experienced and younger partner, Sylvie, is she's elevated to be the main character in season two, and it's up to her to figure out exactly what's going on.
Now, what about season one, which by the way, I've heard was pretty decent?
It was okay. It was okay. And it was good enough, I think, to draw people back for season two. But what remains to be seen is whether the critics think that Sylvie is a strong enough character in the lead to justify having a third season.
Tell me about this booklet. I mean, it's quite impressive. It has that great feel, kind of like a graphic novel or a
Hmm.
book. There's definitely a lot of visuals going on. So tell me about that.
Well, the idea was that each song was an episode in this particular season of the show. So those images you see in the booklet, those are essentially when you're watching on a streaming uh, TV platform such as Netflix and et cetera, and you pull up the season, then it shows you these little thumbnail images from one from each episode of the show, so you can find the right episode. So that's what those images represent. And on the vinyl, actually, which I could grab from downstairs if you want me to, on the back cover of the vinyl, it actually has kind of all of those little images, and
Oh,
it looks like a streaming menu. Yeah, if you want to pause, I'll go grab it and I can show you.
that's fine. No, I
Okay.
get all of the images here, so I know
Yeah.
exactly one. Now, I have to say the storyline flows very nicely from song to song. It is not confusing at all,
Good.
and you seem to have a lot of fun delivering it. Especially, it helps more if you have the booklet
It
or
does.
where you can see the images and see the lyrics. So that's a big plus. Um, so how did you map it out, and did you go through any challenges?
No, once I had decided on the concept and that it would have this kind of storyline, it was actually I surprised myself with how relatively easy it was because I didn't have to come up with a topic for each individual song. What I had to do was think back over all these series that I'd watched and what were the what were kind of the cliches? What were the types of characters that showed up in every single series? What were the patterns? Obviously, you have all these, what do they call it, a red herring in storytelling, where you think you've solved the mystery. It really seems like it was the neighbor when he was taking out his trash, and then, of course, that turns out to be completely incorrect. Things like that. Of course, there's the what I think is kind of the ultimate detective mystery cliche is when the chief, the detective has screwed something up completely and embarrassed the entire police department, and the detective says, "You're off the case, hand in your badge and hand in your weapon." And then, of course, the very next episode or the very next chapter, the detective's back on the case and on his way to solving it, on her way to solving it in this case. Um, One thing I noticed about the Scandinavian shows is that there's almost always a helicopter, that there always is some climactic chase involving a helicopter. Um, there's often a child who was a witness to maybe not to the crime, but to something related to the crime, and there's a child who holds a very important clue, but doesn't reveal it until later in the series. So once I had kind of in my head formed this set of what what all the cliches would be, all these maybe too common devices in this type of storytelling. Again, I surprised myself that it was fairly easy to then kind of make the individual songs and narrate the action.
Yeah. Funny you say that. As I listen to the recording, I do envision a very creative live presentation.
Yes.
Is there a chance of something like that ever happening?
Well, I've answered this question a few times in a few different ways. Um, Generally speaking, i- it's not impossible
Mhm.
for Actor to play live. We're all still alive. We enjoy the music. Maybe there is a gig or a festival that would like to have us. Um, Practically speaking, once we take that out of the hypothetical conversation realm and into like finding a practical way of doing it, it becomes there are two paths. Let's put it that way. There are two paths. One path is involves a lot of playback, a lot of backing tracks, just because there's so much sound. There's so many layers of melody and just of texture in these songs that the songs really depend on. You couldn't really perform that song without all of those layers. And one way to do that would be with backing tracks and just a small number of musicians playing live instruments. Um, the other path, door number two, is to add uh, extra musicians to play all those sounds in real time without using playback. We would need a couple of keyboard players. We would need probably an extra guitar player. Um, Maybe a bass player. I don't know that I could play bass. I play bass on the album. I don't know that I could play bass and sing simultaneously with this material. I haven't tried. Um, so that's a more complicated and more expensive way of achieving that. Um, and I don't know. I don't know which of if we were to set out and try to perform live, I don't know which of those paths we would choose. Obviously, path number two with extra, adding people to the band is logistically more costly and probably financially also. On the other hand, would people really want to see an actor show that's 50% backing tracks? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So, uh, yeah, short answer, not impossible. The long answer that you just heard, the practicalities of it,
Mhm.
pretty challenging.
No, I do agree. Um, so now, after what, 15 years, three records, how would
Yeah.
you describe the progress or evolution of Actor through the releases?
Um, I think our process has gotten to be more refined, and I think that Jussi as the main kind of the point of origin for the songwriting, I think that he has gotten a better sense of when he is fiddling around on the guitar and comes up with something. I think his intuition for, hey, this is an actor song. I think that has gotten better. I think he's able to kind of identify those ideas and set them to the side for actor more readily now that we do have more of a precedent for what we sound like and how we work. And I think we've also become more refined. As I said, he's been more recently adding more of those synthesizer melodies and extra layers already at the demo process. With the first album, we did only guitars and drums and bass, and then all the extras, all those extra sounds came at a relatively late stage. I may have even already done my vocals before we put all the synthesizers on for the first album. With this album, that stuff was already there before I even began to sing. Yeah, I think, and again, my bandmates may give a different answer, but my feeling is that we've become uh, more capable as far as um, creating creating the album in a way that suits our process and vice versa.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely sounding a lot more musical than, let's say, the first album.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And it's got a much harder sound. That was one thing we did want this time around was a more just kind of a more kick-ass production with, heavier guitars. Obviously the drums have a lot more um thump in them. And that was part of the reasoning for working with Dan was we knew he could do that type of mix compared to the more what I would describe as more of a classic rock
Mhm.
kind of sound for the first two albums.
So, in addition to being musically active with variety of bands, projects, you are also in the process of completing a book about Bathory.
Yes, sir.
Canadian band, right? Staying on topic. So, where are you at with this?
Uh, my part is almost finished, I'm happy to say.
Mhm.
Um, I have a few remaining loose ends that I am working on every day, um, with a view to finishing a manuscript by the end of the year. This year, I should say. Um, there have been other years where I thought maybe this is the year, but now I'm sure of it. I can really see the finish line, and um, I have mixed feelings about how little there is left to write. I'm kind of savoring these last few big writing sessions that remain. Anyway, once I complete that, then my partner Kola has two small chapters that he needs to write, which he will do within January, and then we move into the hopefully not so painful process of editing and proofreading. Um, and then it will be handed to our publisher. Actually, I think we have two different publishers for two different territories um, ready to receive it. And we are, I think it's realistic and optimistic at the same time that we will have it released in the fall of 26.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Finally, what do you think you get out of Actor that you don't get from any other musical venture you're involved with?
Um, it's a little more free. Actually, it's a lot more free. There's no expectation, and I mean that in a creative sense and also in a commercial sense. There's no pressure to um, do a gig, to kind of fulfill. There's no pressure to fulfill any kind of pre-existing image or we don't have um a counterexample with High Spirits. The first album, Another Night, um, will kind of always be, um, I don't want to say hanging over us, but it will always be on people's minds um, because that was very much um, a breakthrough for me creatively, for the band. We joke that we're still touring for that album, even though even though we've made four new albums in the meantime. Like we're really still just touring for that one. Which we say in a joking way because it- we do take the other albums very seriously, and realistically, we're doing at the most three songs from that album on any particular show. But the feeling remains because that's the album that sells the best to this day, and that's the T-shirt also designed that also sells the best to this day. So whatever uh, whatever business High Spirits is doing, and again, I mean that creatively as well as literally business, but whatever uh, new ground or movement High Spirits makes, we've still got another night in our rearview mirror, and a lot of the audience does too. Um, with Actor, that's completely not true. With Actor, we have I think three albums. Well, at least two, and it remains to be seen with the third one, that I think are held kind of equally amongst the fans. And I think also an Actor fan, and here I'm no longer doing a High Spirits comparison. I'm speaking only about Actor. Um, I think Actor fans are a very open-minded type of music fan, type of rock fan, and that's also freeing. Um, there are no expectations or Actor has no genre. We don't have we don't have guardrails in the form of you know genre protocols or things like this. It's very again, it's very free, and I think that maybe uh, I I have felt that at times with other projects, maybe with particular albums or even just within particular songs where I can feel myself. There's always some element of risk, I think, in writing a song. I think creating any type of art. I think I think it's healthy to have some amount of risk. Um, but with Actor, that almost goes. There's almost so much risk that there's no risk at all because we can we can feel free to follow whatever inspiration we have, whatever the song seems to need, um, which is maybe not quite the same situation in every other band.
Yeah, it's a very unique blend, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Thank you so much, Chris, and
Thanks, Mark.
with Actor and all other bands you guys do.
Yeah, and thanks for the work you do too. We do appreciate it.